And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Vonnie Quinn taking you through to that closing bell with a global simulcast. It started with Tim Stenovec in the radio booth, Isabelle Lee in today for Carol Master. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, YouTube. Tim Stenovec here on an interesting day here, a day where we see the markets move lower, only fractionally. But of course, this is ahead of some key economic data this week.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm watching. Tomorrow, we're going to get CPI. Later this week, we will get some PPI. We'll get some sentiment data. At the end of the week, we'll get retail sales. It's all trying to paint a picture, Isabelle, of what exactly the Fed is going to do in September. And of course, we'll hear from officials of the Federal Reserve in Jackson just a little later this month.
Maybe risky assets have faltered, but I have my eyes just stuck on Bitcoin because we see the coin really just rising. I feel like it's a perfect storm for this. Of course, all these smaller altcoins like Ether is also edging higher, but really, I can't take my eyes off of Bitcoin.
Oh my gosh. Remember when people used to take August off, though? Seriously? I mean, we're in the middle of August and it's really a fascinating market, even if, you know, on the surface, we're not moving too much today, as you all say.
Yeah, and it gets to this idea, too. We talk about the idea of catalysts to move the market, but sometimes the lack of catalysts also can sort of be an upside for markets as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, Tim. But also this idea that, you know, we just got a 90-day extension on the trade truce with China, if you will, and a few other concessions by the president that might be a net positive.
Yeah, and, you know, wait to hear the latest coming from the White House, too, with the Intel CEO, who's supposedly there right now, Romaine.
Yeah, absolutely. We should point out CNBC is reporting that Lip Bhutan was seen entering the White House grounds. A crucial meeting here for a company that has obviously been looking for some sort of a lifeline here with regards to its role in the broader chip ecosystem. As we give you the numbers here on this Monday afternoon, it is red across the screen, though we should point out that the losses across the board are fractional. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down by about 0.5 percentage point, the S&P 500 down by about 0.25 percentage point, and the NASDAQ down by about 0.3%. The Russell 2000 only dropping about 0.1% on the day, though. Tim, I do just want to point out Dow Transports, that was your big laggard on the day. As a group, they were down 1%.
Well, looking at the S&P 500, how it closed today, we did have 177 stocks move higher. 320 stocks did move lower.
Yeah, and if you look at the IMAP, I mean, it's more interesting of a day than it would seem. So you have most areas in the S&P 500 lower, but as Romaine said, fractionally, and several fascinating stories within those. You know, for example, the energy story, there was, you know, a major decrease in energy stocks today, but you have the lithium story factoring into that, you have gold factoring into that, you have oil factoring into that. So it's really just a fascinating market, all told. One of the sectors in the green still, though, consumer discretionary, so Procter & Gamble up 1% today, and that really helped, you know, at least stave off the worst of the losses.
Some really interesting stories playing out, too, when it comes to individual movers. I got the gainers today with Carol out of office. I want to start with Intel, as Romaine mentioned. Lip Bhutan, the CEO, who was called out by President Trump late last week in a social media post, according to CNBC, has been seen entering the White House. Investors liked what they heard early this morning when the Wall Street Journal did report that he was set for a meeting at the White House today, 3.7% to the upside for Intel. The person who said this and was familiar with the situation asked not to be identified, discussing private matters. The president did write that post on Truth Social Thursday that Tan should step down as CEO of Intel, describing him, quote, as highly conflicted. Also watching TKO Holdings, 10.2% to the upside today. Paramount has acquired the exclusive rights to show all events from the UFC in the U.S. over the next 7 years. It's a $7.7 billion deal. David Ellison is paying UFC's owner TKO Group Holdings more than double what it received under a previous deal with ESPN, which of course is owned by Walt Disney. And David Ellison is hoping the Mixed Martial Arts League will drive millions of viewers to the company's streaming service. Once again, TKO Group Holdings up 10.2% today. And finally, did you guys see what happened with weed stocks today? Marijuana stocks?
I did.
Tilray up 42% today. It was one of the most actively traded stocks in the U.S. today. This after a report that President Trump was considering reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug. The report cited the president's remarks made during a fundraising event. This, according to people familiar with the matter, it highlighted a potential new scheduling push from the administration. Once again, Tilray Brands up 42% today.
I just want to just add an honorable mention there, and that's actually Fannie and Freddie. I was just keeping an eye on them. The shares rose 15% today, and that includes a 20% gain on Friday.
Is this a Bill Ackman move?
It's now $11.48 a share. It may not seem like much, but a milestone here. It's actually back to its highest level since 08 when it went into conservatorship back in September 08. Of course, this was, of course, more a $100 stock at one point back in 07, 06, but still a clear milestone here that maybe there is something afoot.
Well, we still have earnings crossing right now. GoPro, the maker of those cameras, coming out with second quarter revenue.
Is it public?
It's still public. It has not been acquired.
Okay.
You know, we could do a whole story about GoPro. It's pretty fascinating that this is still a public company.
I still have one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, a lot of people would argue that phones, you know,
well, maybe
really
when
hurt
AI
them.
needs a whole bunch of, you know, photographs and stuff, maybe then they'll buy the IP from GoPro or whatever.
Yeah,
idea?
that's a good point. Second quarter adjusted revenue came in 18% below what it did at the same time last year. Second quarter adjusted loss per share coming in 8 cents versus a loss per share of 24 cents last year. In the after hours, shares moving higher right now by about 4.6%.
Let's stick with the decliners. Dole is down 8% after the company cut its annual adjusted EBITDA forecast. The company also said that industry-specific challenges and less favorable weather conditions in much of Central America really put pressure on their industry supply and, of course, their sourcing costs. That, as well as really just weak market demand. Up next is Humacyte. This is also a big loser, down by almost 30%, the most since March. So this comes after the maker of bioengineered human tissue product, that's a mouthful, reported revenue that fell short of expectations. And I want to end on a fun note, although maybe it's not so fun because shares are down by almost 5%. Hershey, so the chocolate maker, is trading lower as cocoa futures climb. So this comes after renewed concern about weaker African corp forecast in the coming season. And on July 22, recall that Hershey said it is raising prices on its candy due to, again, historically high cocoa prices.
Real quickly, let's check in on what's happened with yields on this day. We did see a slight downdraft pretty much across the curve, but they were, as you can see, modest declines to be sure when it comes to yields. In fact, basically not much of a decline at all. Call it unch on the day, but it gets to this idea of a market that remains in stasis as, of course, everyone now awaits the economic data, and the economic data, of course, as it sort of will relate to what the Fed may potentially do next. Will they have enough ammunition to actually come out and cut rates at their September meeting? All right, let's go back to earnings. Archer Aviation crossing the wire right now. The company, as expected, did post a loss of about $206 million. The company also reporting operating expenses that also rose. That was expected as well. However, the EBITDA loss did come in a little bit higher than expected, $118 million and change. And that does appear to be maybe part of the reason why you're seeing the shares move a little bit lower here in the post-market trade, down about 7%.
Do you guys have Labubu? Any
You're
Labubu?
excused. No, no.
No. Romaine?
No,
Not a big Labubu person?
I am. But I gave them all away.
You give?
Oh.
That's so kind of
Yeah,
you.
I
GoPro.
bought like a big box of them like a few weeks ago, and I gave them out to my nieces and nephews and a couple of adults in my life too in the bureau.
It's interesting because I have no Labubu from Romaine on my desk.
Well, sorry, that's a hot commodity, Tim.
It is a
I had to
hot
portion them
commodity.
out, you know.
The Dubai chocolate, trend as well. It's a hot commodity.
Awful, yeah. Go ahead.
Crumble cookies.
Crumble.
Matcha.
Matcha.
Amanda Mole has this great piece. She writes about consumers for Bloomberg Business Week. She's got a great piece about TikTok trends and the way that they're driving random consumer spending. And it's kind of baffling, not just her, but the way that people are thinking about how to study what consumers are spending money on and what they're prioritizing right now.
You know, it's funny because I've heard of most of those before, but I really think I've learned about a lot of all of those trends just from TikTok itself, from people talking about TikTok.
Yeah, that story though was good because I think it really gets to the idea of sort of what drives virality, and particularly for those of us of a certain age where it was a lot of effort to even get your name or your product out there in the zeitgeist. And now, if you can sort of hit a nerve on social media here, you can, do it. I mean, you go down the street here to.
I was just going to talk about other kinds of nerves, those in jellyfish, but we're not going to talk about that story apparently.
The
gotta wait for TikTok.
The one point you brought up, though, is that how these are material things that really require people to come together. So maybe we're not all digital for now.
All right, I'm ready for a Labubu, Romaine. You can still bring me one.
All right. When's your birthday? Just mark
We
it
need to
down.
translate that for people who don't know what Labubu is.
Isn't it a stuffed animal?
Because that sounded very odd, I
A
have to
six-year-old,
say.
a 6-year-old showed me.
Tim,
It's
don't
a
you do
stuffed
this.
animal, right?
It's time to say goodbye. You're not going to be Carol.
Okay.
I want to see what's on Romaine's
months.
GoPro. Do you still take
All
that thing
right.
out and like look at it like a slide carousel or whatever?
It's largely me hiking with my dog and then basically me getting tired and sitting on a rock. So, yeah.
All right.
I thought it would be more action involved.